Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Marcy Mowry, the president of the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation. As with previous Lunch and Learns, if you would like to make a comment, feel free to put those into the comment box, both on Facebook and YouTube. And throughout the presentation, I will be monitoring the chat box if you have a comment, and there will also be opportunities to answer some questions in the chat box. So I'm excited today to have with me Lauren Imgrund, who is the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Deputy Secretary of Conservation and Technical Services. Deputy Secretary Imgrund oversees both DCNR's Bureau of Recreation and Conservation and the Bureau of Geologic Survey. Also with us today is Diane Kripas. She is DCNR's Division Chief for the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation's Partnership Division. And today they're going to be talking to us about the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, which sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but it's a really important plan focusing on the next 5 years on recreation in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The plan examines the recreation needs and trends through an extensive public participation process, and perhaps some of you participated in those questionnaires or surveys. As the state's outdoor recreation leader, DCNR leads the development and implementation of the plan. And today we'll hear about the process, the public input, and how the plan is being implemented as we speak. So Diane and Lauren, thank you so much for being here with me today. Good to see you both.
Thank you, Marcy. Really happy to be here in conjunction with Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation to be talking about the implementation and the development of the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and the accompanying trails plan. PPFF is a really critical partner with DCNR in advancing all of our work across Pennsylvania, and we're happy to be here talking to everybody about what DCNR is doing with a lot of partners to advance outdoor recreation in Pennsylvania. I guess, do we want to put up the presentation now? Yes, perfect. So what we're going to talk about today is our new outdoor recreation and trail network plans. Every 5 years, Pennsylvania develops a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, and we've been doing this since the 1960s. It is a requirement to be eligible for federal land and water conservation funding, but Pennsylvania takes it, like we do with all of our plans and our implementation, we take it to the next level so that we can really use this plan and this work to advance local and state outdoor recreation across the Commonwealth, whether or not it receives federal or state funding at all, really to help all of us to advance the outdoor recreation needs of the Commonwealth. Just as an aside, one of the great things about the Land and Water Conservation Fund is last year it was fully and permanently funded at $900 million a year across the country, and that equates to about $12 to $15 million here in Pennsylvania every year. And we include that as part of the funding for our $60+ million Community Conservation Partnerships grant program. So a good bit of money. We always could use more, but a good bit of money to help advance this plan across the state. And we lead the development and implementation of the plan in partnership, as I mentioned, with organizations like the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation, Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society, We Conserve PA, and many other state and local partners. We put a lot of effort into this planning process, and our last 2 plans that we did over the last 10 years in 2009 and 2014 were national award winners, and we helped to advance outdoor recreation across the state under those. This year's plan, the 2020 plan, and the goals for the next 5 years are to elevate the importance of outdoor recreation, to use collaborative relationship with partners to identify common priorities, and to develop a long-range vision, which is up on the screen right now. This is the first time we actually came up with a vision for outdoor recreation in Pennsylvania, and what that vision is, you can see it there, is enjoyable outdoor recreation that is welcoming to all and accessible in every Pennsylvania community. And we developed this vision prior to the pandemic and prior to really sort of the reckoning we're having around systemic racism in the country and in Pennsylvania. So we were maybe a little ahead of the game on some of those issues, but certainly are incorporating more as we learn moving forward. We work with a technical advisory committee, 40 plus folks who worked with us on the plan. We developed 5 priorities, 20 recommendations, and 70 actions. So we're going to tell you a lot about the plan, but if you want to get more details on it, you can see it here. The links on this on the screen here, and we can put those in the comment section as well, probably. And if you want a hard copy of the plan, we're absolutely happy to mail that to you. And Lori Ross in our office will do that for you. So you can just put your address there in the comments, and we'll work with PPFF to get that. So in addition to the general outdoor recreation plan, we also did a specific plan on trails. And so the vision for this planning process was to develop a statewide land and water trail network to facilitate recreation, transportation, and healthy lifestyles for all. And as mentioned, we really have this strong focus in our agency and in both these planning processes on making sure that we're listening and incorporating and responding to all Pennsylvanians in these planning processes. So what is outdoor recreation? We kind of debated how to actually define this, and this is what we came up with this year for this plan. Those activities that people do outdoors in their free time: walking, bicycling, picnicking, hunting, fishing, camping, playing basketball and other sports, bird watching, paddling, tourism, historic sites and nature centers, motorized riding, etc. This does not include indoor activities. Not that they're not important recreation, but this is all about the outdoor recreation. This is also just a flavor of all the different activities. Of course, things like walking, swimming, running are parts of outdoor recreation as well. Now on to why we have a separate plan just on trails. Trails are a really important component and priority that we hear again and again from Pennsylvanians about the outdoor recreation activities that they want and the areas that they want to recreate in. So in 2009, we actually put a very strong focus on trails. But by 2014, we had decided to develop a separate trails plan. So you'll see here that we've defined trails as a designated route on land or water with public access for recreation or alternative transportation to work, for example, or shopping. Opportunities such as walking, hiking, fitness, backpacking, cross-country skiing, etc., as you see here. And for these trails are for all ages and all abilities, the whole suite of trails here in Pennsylvania. Now I'm going to turn this over to Diane Kripas, who's our champion of this plan, and she's going to talk about the public input and the priorities of the plan as well. So take it away, Diane.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Diane Kripas and from DCNR's Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the survey research that that was used for the foundation of the plan. And as you can see, the header is over 12,000 Pennsylvanians responded, and we did a number of survey techniques to hear from Pennsylvanians, and you can see the 5 that are up there. We work with Penn State Center for Survey Research that does polling twice a year, and those are called the Lion Polls. And when we get information from a Lion Poll, it is statistically valid at the Pennsylvania level, so we can call them Pennsylvanians. So Pennsylvanians told us how they felt about certain aspects related to outdoor recreation. We also had an online survey that some of you may have taken, and that was non-random. Anybody could take the survey. And we heard a lot from our outdoor recreation fan club, or the outdoor recreation enthusiasts, as we call them. And then we wanted to hear from the boots on the ground, those local park and recreation providers, land trust preserve managers, trail providers that are working with their residents and their visitors on a regular basis. And what are their challenges, and what are they seeing across Pennsylvania? And we heard from over 1,100 park and recreation directors, county commissioners, municipal managers from that survey. And we know from past planning that we don't hear enough from non-white participants. So we did 2 specific focus groups, one with Blacks and African Americans and a second with Hispanics. And then for our trail plan, Pennsylvania's trail system is built on the backs of volunteers, and we have countless nonprofit trail organizations across Pennsylvania that are helping maintain and build our trails from one end of Pennsylvania to the other. And we wanted to hear specifically from them on what their challenges are and what they think we should be doing over the next 5 years. So as Lauren mentioned, we had a technical advisory committee that was part of this planning effort, and we had representatives from the National Park Service, from other state agencies, from 20 nonprofits. And for this 2020 plan, we had a special emphasis on a diverse committee, and we wanted to have representation from as many different kinds of folks as we could to help guide this planning effort. This committee set the 2020 priorities, and you can see the 5 priorities on the screen. We will talk about each of them and how we're implementing them towards the end of this presentation. But as Lauren mentioned, we've had award-winning plans before, and this new plan, I describe it as we remodeled the house, we may have added a room, and we overlaid it with smartness, and that was the technology side of the plan. This is the first time that we included technology as a standalone priority in a plan, and how appropriate that became in 2020. So we wouldn't be having this presentation probably without the technology. I wouldn't have been able to work from home for the last 15 months without the technology. And it has become increasingly important when it comes to communicating outdoor recreation. One of our Lion Poll surveys found that 1 out of 4 Pennsylvanians are less interested in outdoor recreation when they don't have Wi-Fi coverage, and that number rises to 1 out of 3 Pennsylvanians for our younger Pennsylvanians. So when we did our polling, we learned that Pennsylvanians love the outdoors. So more than 9 out of 10 Pennsylvanians participated in at least some outdoor recreation this past year. Over half of our respondents participated at least a couple times a month, and the higher income that you make and the younger that you are, the more often that you participate. Our lower income residents, some of them didn't participate in outdoor recreation at all in 2019. So we also learned that outdoor recreation is essential, and when we asked that question, nearly 90% of respondents agree that outdoor recreation is an essential part of their lives. That number rises to 93% for our younger Pennsylvanians, and 80% want to participate more. And nearly 90% are concerned that our youth are not spending enough time outdoors. And I'm sure that was a great concern for many of us in 2020 when we were homebound and encouraged to go outside, but they were not, the kids weren't able to do youth sports last spring, and as they were traditionally in most springs. So we want to find out where Pennsylvanians go for their outdoor recreation. And if you'd like to put in the chat, I haven't seen anything come in the chat yet. So I'm encouraging you to let us know, where do you go for your outdoor recreation? What park do you like to use? What state park do you like to visit? So if there's a favorite place that you go for your outdoor recreation, please share that in the chat. But we learned from Pennsylvanians that about half of our Pennsylvanians visit a local park, and that is the most popular place that folks like to go to. The second place is state parks, and between local and state parks, that number rises to almost 3/4 of Pennsylvanians. In Pennsylvania, the national parks are not a big draw as they would be in Utah or Colorado. We don't have as much visitation on our federal lands, and then the private facilities like golf courses and private hunting clubs make up 17%. We did have 16% of our respondents that say they did not visit any outdoor recreation areas in 2019. We also asked Pennsylvanians, how many can feel that you can safely walk to a public park? And again, about half of Pennsylvanians agree that they can safely walk to a public park. Men agree to that statement more than women. We also wanted to find out about their trail use and how comfortable folks were with safely accessing a trail within 15 minutes of where they live. And that number increased a little bit because we went from 10 minutes to 15 minutes. But 69% of Pennsylvanians agreed to that statement. The higher income respondents agreed to that statement more than lower income, and white respondents agreed to that statement more than black respondents. So this chart is a little complicated, so I'll try to simplify it for you. We asked this question 3 different times in 3 different surveys, and respondents were given one choice. So out of these 9 choices, where would you put your money? So if you had $1 and that dollar had to be placed on one of these 9 priorities for funding, which one would you pick? And maintaining existing park and recreation areas was the #1 answer in 2 of the 3 surveys. So that green line that goes across the top was from our local park and recreation providers. So those folks that have to take care of the parks every day want to make sure that they have the resources to keep caring for existing facilities before they take on new facilities. And then our Pennsylvanians had supported that as the #1 answer. And then the public survey, in which we had 8,400 responses, had acquiring and protecting open space as their #1 answer. So those 3 top ones are all very important to the public and the responses of the various surveys that we had. So we also asked in our online survey, so what kind of activities do you like to do? And we gave a choice of 20 different activities, and you can see that top answer by far was hiking and walking as the #1 and #2 answers. We also learned that women and men have different interests. No surprise that women like to hike and walk more than men, and men like to fish and hunt more than women. We also learned that our youngsters, our younger Pennsylvanians, enjoy hiking the most, and our seniors enjoy the wildlife watching and bird watching. That was more popular for them. So this was a very interesting question. We've never asked this question before, but we asked our outdoor enthusiasts, what's the one outdoor activity you'd like to try? And we had thousands of responses to this question, and out popped kayaking. So over 800 respondents told us that they would like to try kayaking. The #2 answer was down at 250 respondents wanted to try rock climbing. And then there was also a strong response for motorized recreation activity. So again, I encourage you to put in the chat function, what one outdoor activity would you like to try? So what's something that you've never done before, and that if you had your choice or you had the opportunity, you'd say, I'm really interested in, in rock climbing, or I'm really interested in, in paddleboarding for the first time. So we'd love to hear your comment on that. So we learned in 2020 that a whole lot of other folks were interested in kayaking and biking, camping in 2020. And that bike sold out in 2020, and it's still very difficult to buy a bike. And kayaking, there was also an 85% increase in the sale of kayaking. So we know that in 2020, the outdoor recreation areas attracted a lot of new residents who needed equipment to be able to pursue their interests. So we also asked our outdoor enthusiasts, how can we help improve your outdoor recreation experiences? So what can we do to make things better in Pennsylvania for outdoor recreation? And again, the top answer was, well, make sure that you keep your facilities clean and that the infrastructure is well maintained. So maintenance related comments were the #1 answer, but the facility that was talked about the most was trails. So we had over 2,000 comments related to trails, and about half of them were related to non-motorized trails. I want my own, I want my own equestrian trail, or I want more mountain biking trails. And I like trails to better connect to each other. And then we had a very strong response from the motorized community that wanted a lot of the same things. So I want a connected system. I want more opportunities. And again, that supports why we have a separate trail plan, because we have 2,000 different opinions when it comes to Pennsylvania trails. And so we have a separate process to deal with those priorities. We did some Lion polling in 2020 to see how people responded to the pandemic as it related to outdoor recreation. We knew our numbers at our state parks were significantly increasing throughout 2020. We had some of the highest visitation in some of our parks and on our trails throughout 2020. And so we wanted to find out what our polling would say on this. And we went back to the Center for Survey Research and asked a number of questions. And we learned that 4 out of 5 Pennsylvanians who visited parks and trails during the pandemic believe that time spent outdoors is essential to their physical and mental health. And we also learned that 1 out of 5 Pennsylvanians bought outdoor recreation equipment gear, and they were probably the ones that bought the kayaks and bought the bikes so that they would have something to do in 2020. We also found that 75% of Pennsylvanians agree that funding outdoor recreation facilities such as parks, trails, and open spaces should be considered a top priority by state and local governments. So how are we implementing this plan? We adopted it in September of 2020. We are 7 months in, and we have, I oftentimes say we turned the SCORP ship. So we've moved from this planning focus to implementation, and we are strong believers that if you do a plan, you need to spend as much effort on implementing the plan over the next 4 years that you did planning it in the first place. So what good is a plan if it just sits on a shelf? So I'm going to turn this back to Lauren, and she's going to share the first 3 priorities and how DCNR and our partners are helping implement these priorities.
Thanks, Diane. As everyone can see, we really got a lot of public input to help focus our priorities in the coming year. We also have a lot of priorities. So as Diane said, it's important for us in our implementation to pick a number of those to focus on as we move the plan forward. So in the area around funding and economic development, I'm going to talk a little bit about economic development first. Outdoor recreation is a powerhouse for jobs and economic activity. Pennsylvania is 5th in the nation as far as the amount of GDP, I think it is, that is from outdoor recreation activities. So we really are an important state in that way. But how do we get our communities and our many rural areas to actually take advantage of that? So one of the things that DCNR has done over the years, working in collaboration with many partners, is to help communities think about how to take advantage of those outdoor assets that you might, as a community member, take for granted. You know, how do we highlight those? And there's a number of partners working on those issues. Really creating these regional coalitions with the leaders of the community, the folks in the tourism agencies and businesses to help strengthen towns so they can better embrace the nature around them. The Pennsylvania Environmental Council, for example, one of our strong partners, has developed a new step-by-step process to form an outdoor town. And this is being piloted in Forest City and Carbondale, both towns which are on the D&H trail, which was DCNR's 2020 Trail of the Year. Forest City, for example, is really small. There's less than 2,000 residents there, but they have a really attractive 4-season recreation areas that people can access. So experts are working in these towns in concert with PEC to help them think about how they can showcase the area, the outdoors, and attract tourists there. Diane mentioned the need for funding and how most Pennsylvanians believe that this is an important place for state and local governments to invest. And state and local governments in Pennsylvania do invest a lot in outdoor recreation, but it's important for us as citizens of the Commonwealth to remind and to speak up to our elected officials at all levels about the importance of outdoor recreation and the importance in investing in facilities and maintenance and the ongoing programming that's critical to make all these spaces safe and welcoming and kinds of places where you want to go. I noticed one of the commenters talked about Parker Dam State Park, and they mentioned that they really like the educational programs there. So that's an important component as well. So Pennsylvania, for improving park and recreation areas and keeping our state parks and forests in good shape has several dedicated funding sources. The Keystone Park Recreation and Conservation Fund and the Environmental Stewardship Fund being two of those state sources. We also use federal funding, as we mentioned, through the Land and Water Conservation Fund and through the Rec Trails program. So these are all really important components of the funds that we have to help advance outdoor recreation. But communities in the grant portions of these have to match these programs with 50% match. And so, it's been a tough year for communities, obviously, as we know, through COVID and the fiscal stress that has been part of that. And the American Rescue Plan, we are very hopeful that funds from that plan will be able to be used by communities to fill holes in their park and recreation budgets. We're awaiting final guidance from the Treasury on that, but one component of the American Rescue Plan is community development block grants, and we know that that funding can be used as a match to DCNR funding. So as you're working with your local elected officials and about parks and trails and outdoor spaces that you care about, remember that we do need money to make them available. We're working at the federal level as well to encourage the infrastructure package that's being talked about to specifically note parks as infrastructure. That would be new. It has never been, parks have not been included in infrastructure packages in the past. So we're working on that with a number of federal partners. And there is a bill out there, the Parks, Jobs, and Equity Act, that you might take a peek at, again, at the federal level. And we know that our state partners like Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation and others are working at the state level on other state level funding sources. So that's what we're doing around funding and economic development. And let's move to health and wellness. So we know that parks, trails, and getting outside is a critical component of our health. And we know that, now more than ever, as Diane mentioned, it's become even more apparent under the pandemic. This is the third of our plans that really has highlighted and called out the importance of health and wellness. And we've been really working closely with the Department of Health on lifestyle changes that people can make so that they can lead healthier lives. A specific thing that we're doing this year, and this will be rolling out in September, is we're partnering with the organization Walk with a Doc to hold a series of doctor-led walks, short walks that will be safe, fun, free, and you'll be able to learn about health in the outdoors by being with a doctor. There should be about 25 of these across the state or more. We're just getting it rolling. It is an existing program, so you might have already heard about it, but this is going to expand and build on that program. In addition to Walk with a Doc, we are partnering very closely with Dr. Michael Sook from the Geisinger Medical Center, and he is helping us to lead these efforts. So exciting plan implementation that we're doing there that might be coming to your local community. So we've stressed a lot in this presentation about the importance of recreation for all. And indeed, the name of the plan is Recreation for All. And as we know, with the many things that have been going on around racial equity and dismantling systemic racism, it's important for us in all of our programs and all of our work to be thinking about how we ensure equity of access in Pennsylvania's outdoors. So the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and our partners are really focused on this. And we're rolling out a number of things agency-wide, including a new signage program that explicitly notes that everyone is welcome in our parks and forests, because we have read and have heard that that's a good practice, to assure that people realize that we're welcoming of all Pennsylvanians and visitors to our parks and forests. One of the things that we focused on, and Diane's going to talk more about this, is equity to spaces in Pennsylvania. We have a lot of open space, a lot of natural lands, a lot of local parks, a lot of state parks, but how accessible are they to all of Pennsylvanians? So we have set a goal for that Pennsylvanians should be able to access a park within 10 minutes of their home, About half of our state is not able to do that. And also, only about half of our Pennsylvanians have easy access to water-based recreation like pools, lakes, and streams. And as you know, with the warming climate, these are even more important areas to focus on. Also, making sure that we are focusing on access to for folks with disabilities. We've been working on adding ADA access features across our system, and we've been working with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation specifically on kayak launches, and we are putting many of these in state parks, including at Little Buffalo and other areas. Somebody mentioned Little Buffalo is one of their favorite parks. So really, these ADA kayak launches make it easier for all of us, even old ladies like me, to get in and out of our kayaks. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane, who's going to talk more specifically about how we figured out who has access to these outdoor spaces and what we're going to do about it.
Thank you, Lauren. So one of our signature projects that we've done as part of the plan is that we've done brand new mapping, and we took Pennsylvania's 12,000 miles of trails, our 6,100 local parks, our 121 state parks, our millions and millions of acres with access to those parks and forests, and we put it through a GIS process. And so we have technology available now that allows us to evaluate how many communities have residents that can walk to a park. And that I personally lived near the closest park I lived in a neighborhood close to a township park, but couldn't safely walk there. So without hitting a major highway, without hitting busy roads, unless you have a car, or that's the only way you can get to the park. So we wanted to analyze where we were at in Pennsylvania, and we have this online mapping tool now that you can go on to DCNR's Outdoor Recreation Plan page, and the mapping's all there, and you can click on it, and you will see who has access within 10 minutes and who doesn't. And there's a map that comes up, and you can look at this at the county level, you can look at this at the municipal level, and those areas in orange and red are high need areas. The orange are the moderate need, and the red is the high need areas. So as an agency, we're going to be looking at those red and orange areas. And when applications come to us for funding, we're going to see where they're at. And if they're in high priority areas, they will be getting additional points in this round of funding that we just closed. So it is a priority for us to be able to fill in the spaces here, fill in the places that folks do not have access to a park. We have several hundred municipalities that do not have a local park in their municipality. And so we want to make sure that all Pennsylvanians have the opportunity to have a local park near them, preferably within a 10-minute walk. So our fourth priority is sustainable systems. And for the first time ever, Pennsylvania's plan addresses climate change. And we have several recommendations related to that, and in terms of providing more water access, which was something that Lauren mentioned, that only about half of Pennsylvanians can drive to water within 10 minutes of their home. So for a lot of us, even though we have a lot of water in Pennsylvania, I think it's 80,000 miles of waterways, it's still difficult to get to water in many communities, or you don't have access to water. So we do have a strong emphasis on implementing climate change related priorities. As we get warmer climates, we learned that in March here in central Pennsylvania, when the snow melted, people came out and descended upon our parks and our trails. March is not normally a good outdoor recreation month, but it was warm. And so we had some of the highest visitation again in some of our parks and on our trails in the month of March. So our seasons are getting longer for outdoor recreation if you, unless you're a skier. But there's a lot of increase or impact on the system when we extend out into November, December, and March, when we may not traditionally have the staff on board to support that visitation. So one of the initiatives that we're working with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation on, and the Pennsylvania Recreation Park Society, as well as Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful, is this idea of a Love Your Park weekend, Love Your Park Day. They're working on all the details through a committee now, but this is something that north to New York State, they have done this program for 10 years now. This is their 10th anniversary, and this weekend coming up is New York's Love Your Park weekend. So we're hoping to bring that to Pennsylvania, and so that we can spread the love across Pennsylvania and get as many volunteers as possible to help clean up the parks and trails, help plant trees, help do small projects, and do a lot of what friends groups do all the time. But if you want to attract new members to your friends groups, this might be a great opportunity to do this. And we also know that it's important to keep up with the latest training, and to be able to provide to our park and public works managers that are taking care of our park systems the best training that we can on sustainable systems. So we are supporting the Pennsylvania Park Maintenance Institute and encouraging folks to take advantage of all the training that they have available, so that you can bring the best ideas back to your parks and into your trail systems. So our final priority is technology. And I mentioned earlier that we overlaid our house with smartness, and we wanted to use all the great technology that is out there now to be able to enable folks to better find outdoor places through apps, like resources at your fingertips. So this website, Get Outdoors Pennsylvania, was developed with a partnership with the Fish and Boat Commission, Pennsylvania Game Commission, Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. I think we have 9 partners that have supported this, and it's a place where you can go to get resources. It's a place that you can go to look for training videos, and we're going to be beefing up this website to provide more resources here, so that providers of outdoor recreation can have resources at your fingertips to share to your participants, to those that are interested in resources to help start kayaking in your community, even though you can use public swimming pools as starting places to help people learn how to kayak. So how can you introduce these new activities to your constituents, to your residents? And this is a great resource that we will be expanding on in 2021. So I also wanted to just briefly mention our new Pennsylvania Trail Network strategic plan. Lauren had given you the vision for Pennsylvania trails earlier, and the key is that trails are not just for recreation, but they're also for health. They're also for active transportation. There is a lot of use of our trails, or increasing use of our trails, as commuting trails. And so there are many, many reasons for a very strong trail system across Pennsylvania, and we promote it as a network, and that we want folks to have the opportunity to just get out their front door with their bike or walk, and be able to access a trail via a bike lane or a sidewalk, and that have these trails connected together, so that we have a spider web of trails from one end of Pennsylvania to the other, and that we bring trails home, so that there is a trail within 10 minutes of every citizen. So the trail plan focuses on, I highlighted in blue, key points. Where are we going to find the money for the continued funding of trails? The easy trails are done. The sections we have to go, the infrastructure we have to build, you're going to see that shortly, cost a lot of money. And so we're looking at various funding options to help bring those resources to complete our trail systems. We know it requires many, many partnerships, and we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to regularly use a trail. We want to connect communities, and we want to make sure that we take care of our existing trail system. As I said earlier, we have 12,000 miles of trails that we need to care for and make sure that they're cared for first before we're off building more miles of trails. And then there are many benefits of trails that we need to spread the word. So our key focus is on closing trail gaps, working together, making sure our trails are welcoming, and supporting the various user groups. So whether it's a hiking group or an equestrian group, Pennsylvania has many flavors of trails and many user groups. So we want to make sure that we're listening and to the needs of those user groups, and seeing how we can support the needs of their users. And I mentioned earlier our focus on gaps. Pennsylvania right now has 112 priority trail gaps, and these are important. All the gaps are important, but these are ones that have risen to the top, that if we can connect them, we could be connecting systems together. They're the big bang for our bucks here, represents 200 miles that we need to build and 62 bridge projects. So there's a lot ahead of us to help close Pennsylvania's big trail systems, connect the gaps, connect trails to communities, and that's what many of these gaps will do. So with that, I'm going to pause here, turn this back over to Marcy, and encourage you to ask us your questions, or if you've got information you want to share, some opinions you want us to hear. We're always open for new ideas and to hear from others.
Most excellent. Thank you, Diane and Lauren. That was a very informative presentation. And as you were talking, we were posting the URLs in the chat box so people can access the information in more detail. There were several questions that were posted, and I think I saw Lauren catching some of those, but I will start with the one on geocaching. We had one viewer who is loves to geocache and camp and is wondering if there's anything in the works to streamline the process of setting geocaches in our parks and forests.
This is Lauren, and I appreciate that question, and I hate to be the I don't know the answer to that type person, but I don't know the answer to that, so we can certainly get back on that issue and get some more details for you.
Yeah, I was wondering, Marcy, if you have an answer to that. I mean, you work in state parks and forests more than I do, and so I was wondering if you've run into this challenge and if any of your friends groups are working on this.
We have friends groups that are working on putting in geocaches, but they're working in a particular place. And I think what the challenge is that right now you have to go to parks and to forests in order to place if you're going to be crossing boundaries. Because I know my brother placed one in one of the state forests and had to work with the state forest district. So I can check in with Parks and Forestry and find out, what the process is and if there's any way, any conversations about streamlining it so that you don't have to go through both bureaus.
Yeah, and I know we're doing a number of things as an agency to, while still being respectful and focusing on the different missions of parks and forestry, trying to have some policies that are more aligned so that's less confusing for people. So we are working on that, but again, specifically on the geocaching, I don't know, but we can certainly look into that.
We can definitely get back. We also had a question with the various mapping tools that you discussed that we posted the links. Can they be accessed to help in developing a trail maintenance condition master plan?
Well, that's a really good question. So to me, that question would be related to an existing system, and that the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation does have funding available to help develop a master plan for a trail system. But I don't know that any of our specific mapping tools would help with the maintenance of an existing system. The mapping tools are designed to show where we need new trails, where there are trail deserts. You might be able to look at how many people are served by that existing trail system. That would be something you could maybe find on the maps. But the question is best addressed, in my opinion, by having a plan. We're strong believers in planning. So to look at how you're currently maintaining the system and bring in some outside experts and figure out how you can create a more sustainable system, or where you need to put your priorities in terms of where you might have water on your trails or some washout spots, and prioritize those areas that need to be improved.
And Diane, you're saying if somebody has, they want to develop a trail maintenance condition plan, they would be able to apply for a grant in the next grant round to develop such a plan?
But we also have our peer funding available anytime. So we can provide a trail expert to come in and look at the system and help do an evaluation of the system. So they should contact the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, contact their regional advisor, and see how, if we would have an eligible project there.
And so maybe Pam could put up the link to the Bureau's page and how to find who their regional advisor would be.
Yes. So that they're our first point of contact. So if anybody's interested in grant funding for local park and recreation and trail systems, our regional advisors are the first point of contact.
Excellent, thank you. I want to build on the trails. You had mentioned that there's almost 200 miles of trail gaps and 62 bridges that need to be put into place to connect this trail network. To give the viewers an idea of the cost of that, have you worked to a back of an envelope of what that might look like in terms of a funding need?
150 million. That's all. Just a little 150 million. No, so bridges can cost a minimum of $1 million. We're right now trying to work on funding for the Brady Tunnel, which is in Clarion County, and we need just a mere $8 million to open the tunnel. So our infrastructure, our rail trail system was built with infrastructure. When the rails were there were bridges and there were tunnels, and we have turned them into rail trails, but there's a few bridges and tunnels that we still need to fix them and open them up.
Yes, and unfortunately there was a beautiful bridge in Lancaster County that was going to be opened a few years ago, and somebody ignited it. So I see that's one of your priority trail bridges. Yes,
so I forget, that's at least $3 million to put it put it back together again and be able to create a more sustainable bridge, not out of wood, but out of a different material to make sure that it'll last for the next 50 years or longer.
I think it's important for the viewers to understand, that the cost you're talking about, this is all infrastructure, and oftentimes our park and forest or recreation infrastructure isn't defined as infrastructure in these infrastructure packages. Is there anything that viewers can do? You mentioned, some of the initiatives that are happening at the federal level. Is there anything that viewers can do to help educate their decision makers that park and forest infrastructure is an important component of quality of life, better health, and the economics of Pennsylvania, and that too should be included as part of the infrastructure plan?
Well, I think as you're talking to your legislators about and local officials about things that are important to you, to bring up the importance of outdoor recreation and the importance of those investments as the legislative and budgeting process happens every year, working with organizations like PPFF and others who work on educating legislators about that, or just in your own, daily maybe not daily interactions, if you have interactions with your legislators, or writing letters, those kinds of things, again, tying it to your personal experience, I think is really important. I think our elected officials like to hear from the public, right? They're here to serve us. I think sometimes it's good to write about something that good that's going on and that you'd like to see continued. And then again, as I mentioned, at the federal level, we are looking at bills like the Jobs, Parks, and Equity Act that the Trust for Public Land is promoting. So you can Google that. That's a great bill that would, bills like that would bring additional funding to the state, and could be included perhaps as part of the infrastructure package that's being put together now. So if you're thinking we're thinking about communicating with Congress on that, again, talking about the importance to you of outdoor recreation and how you think that it's something that we should be investing our state and federal resources in.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll ask Pam. You can't see Pam; she's in the background here. But also, we have software on our website that helps us track initiatives at the state level, and there are some opportunities moving forward. So we'll ask Pam to share that. You had mentioned Walk with the Doc, and that you hope to have a number of Walk with the Doc opportunities in the fall. How can the viewers learn about those opportunities to see if there might be one close to them?
So there will be materials rolling out. We're not quite there yet. So, be watching for our social media and our press releases and those types of things. we will do a comprehensive press release on the program when it's all set up. I'd be looking for that later this summer, once we get everything kind of nailed down.
Awesome. Thank you. Sounds like a great opportunity for people. Are there any other questions that the viewers might have? We did get a comment here. Great job, everyone, from Dr. Mowen. While we're waiting, Diane and Lauren, are there any final words that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Get outside and enjoy all your great spaces in Pennsylvania, and enjoy the great weather that we're having today and part of this week anyway. We're going to get some rain, but hey, we all have raincoats, so get out in that weather too.
It might clean my picnic table off. I went to eat lunch there outside and it was coated in pollen, so a little rain might be good for those with allergies.
Right, and it's not as crowded when it's raining.
This is true. This is true.
I guess
Diane?
I'd say get out just before Diane. I'd say because we've been talking about our spaces and a lot of people using them. Take the time to look at some new spots that you haven't been to before. We have great resources on our website of both state and local parks and natural areas that you can go to. Don't be afraid to try a new spot.
Yes, and I think it's a great time to mention that there are over 6,000 local parks scattered throughout the Commonwealth, all free. So, might be closer for you. It might be less crowded. So check those out. We're a big fan of both local and state parks and forests.
So I would add that Pennsylvania has a lot to offer, and encourage folks to, as Lauren said, find someplace new. And we also have a lot of private outfitters that are there to help you with your kayaking experience, whether it's like Blue Mountain Outfitters comes to mind, or the Pocono Outfitters. There's lots of private sector engagement now that is supporting outdoor recreation, and they offer great trips. So if you want to take a multi-day biking trip or a multi-day kayaking trip and you need support, frequent or visit one of our, the vendors that support outdoor recreation in Pennsylvania. And I do want to give a shout out to Andy Mowen, who I apparently said great job, but Dr. Mowen has been with us and helped Pennsylvania plan its outdoor recreation for, I don't know, decades. He's been around as long as I've been around. So, but he's been a great researcher in Pennsylvania and has done some really good additional research in Pennsylvania to help us plan our systems and continue getting better and continuing to improve what we do.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for all your work, Andy. I do have one other question then that had came up recently in a program that I was doing, and that is a number of new users, particularly women, who wrestle with feeling safe when they're out in the park or going for a walk or taking part in an activity. Do you have any words, or are you doing anything as an agency to help alleviate people's fears if they're new users and have never ventured into utilizing our public lands?
Well, we do have, a focus on encouraging outdoor access for all, as we've mentioned. And I think, if you look sort of statistically, and I wouldn't say that I'm any expert on this, but that the hazards are, somewhat, not minimal. But, I think some of the basic things like letting people know where you're going, hiking with others, focusing on making sure that you're prepared, planning ahead to know what you're going to be, what the area it is that you're experiencing. Is it an area that has cell service? Is it an area that doesn't? Making sure that that, planning ahead with the weather, those kinds of things. I think some of that basic safety protocols that we probably all have, but sometimes forget when we're, getting excited to go outdoors. I think those are some things that I would think. And certainly, maybe to Diane's point, there's a lot of great group things that you can get involved with, and organizations, even through things like meetup groups, for example, where you can get together with like-minded individuals to do that. So, good point, Marcy, and just some thoughts I have. Anything from you, Diane?
I would just support that there are lots of meetup groups out. So if you're interested in hiking, go that direction, and I think you would be able to find some friends that like the same thing that you do. I know that bike clubs offer all kinds of supported rides. It's a great way to meet a whole bunch of new folks and ride together in an area. So that's what I would encourage.
Yeah, and as parks start to open again, they weren't doing a lot of in-person programming last year, and there are opportunities to learn about a location by participating in a park-sponsored activity. I will ask Pam to put one more link in the comment box, and that is we have a lot of new users. It is a priority in the SCORP plan, and that is the leave no trace philosophy of when you're visiting in an area, having as little impact on an area that you're visiting. So, Pam, if you could put that in there as well, so people that are unfamiliar with the leave no trace principles and philosophy can learn a little bit more by visiting their website. Well, go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, Marcy, yes, if I could add, Lauren and I were just with a representative from LL Bean, who does a lot of programming at Lake Nakamixon State Park, a lot of first-time programming. So whether it's REI or LL Bean, again, the private sector is beginning to offer a huge slate of learn to do something activities. So that would be a great way to learn to kayak, paddleboard, rock climb, any of those activities, and also meet new folks while you're doing it.
Yeah, and I think you'll see more of those coming back, outfitters doing demo days, that type of thing. So there are a lot of opportunities. Well, thank you both so much for being here. I'm going to ask that you stick around even after we close the live program. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. As you are aware, these will stay up on our YouTube and Facebook channel. Feel free to share them with other people who you think would benefit from learning more about the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. Thank you for joining us, and Diane and Lauren, thank you so much for being here and joining us.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you. A lot of fun as always.
Great. Thanks.